Hello, beautiful people. The man's simple choice had already created waves. But what came next was far beyond anyone's guess. The Man Who Changed Seats, Part 2. Henry's hand trembled as he looked down at the note. "Sit where I sat, and you'll understand." For a long time, he stared at those words, his heart beating louder than the train's engine. Around him, passengers read their newspapers, sipped tea, or stared out the window as if nothing unusual had happened. Yet for Henry, the air felt heavier, as if the whole carriage was waiting for his decision. He folded the note carefully and slipped it into his pocket. The stranger was now 3 rows away, seated calmly, his eyes hidden behind the brim of his hat. Henry could feel the man watching him, even though he never turned his head. Finally, with a deep breath, Henry stood up. 1 or 2 passengers glanced at him but quickly lost interest. To them, he was just a man stretching his legs. To Henry, each step felt like walking into another world. Slowly, he reached the empty seat where the stranger had first been sitting. He lowered himself into it. At first, nothing happened. The fabric felt the same. The train rattled along the same tracks. The world looked normal. Henry almost laughed at his own foolishness. But then, he blinked. The woman across from him, who had been knitting a green scarf, was suddenly holding a baby instead. The scarf was gone. The baby's small hands reached toward him, and Henry felt a chill run down his spine. He looked to his right. A man reading a newspaper now had a different headline on the page. Earlier it had said, "Mayor opens new library." Now it read, "Mayor arrested for fraud." Henry's mouth went dry. Nothing around him had moved. Nothing had changed. And yet, everything was different. He gripped the edge of the seat, his knuckles white. The stranger smiled faintly from his new row, as if to say, "Now you see." Henry couldn't believe it. Had he gone mad? Was this some trick of the mind? He rubbed his eyes, but the changes remained. The knitting woman was gone. The baby giggled. The newspaper headlines screamed scandal. Even the scenery outside the window felt off. Houses had new shapes. Trees were missing where they had been a moment ago. "Excuse me," Henry said, leaning forward. "Ma'am, where did the scarf go?" The woman frowned at him, holding her baby closer. "Scarf? What scarf? Are you all right, sir?" Henry sat back quickly. His chest tightened. Nobody else seemed to notice the strangeness. To them, this was ordinary life. But Henry knew it wasn't the life he had seen just seconds earlier. He tried standing up, moving toward another seat. But before he could, the train jolted into a tunnel. Everything went dark except for the lamps inside the carriage. When they came out the other side, Henry's jaw dropped. The baby was gone. The knitting woman was back, but this time she wasn't knitting a scarf. She was fixing a torn sleeve on her coat. The man with the newspaper was now reading an entirely different paper, with the headline, "Mayor Wins Award for Honesty." Henry's pulse raced. One moment to another, realities shifted like sand under his feet. And every time the stranger had already moved, 1 row further back, still watching, still waiting. Henry stayed in the seat for the next half hour, and in that time he saw at least 5 different versions of the people around him. The quiet man who had been asleep became a talkative salesman in one version, a soldier in uniform in another, and in yet another he wasn't there at all. His seat completely empty. Even Henry's own reflection in the window frightened him. Once it looked exactly like him. Another time he saw himself older, with gray hair and tired eyes. Another time he looked younger, smiling in a way he hadn't smiled in years. It was too much. He couldn't take it. He stood up suddenly, gasping for air. "Sir, are you feeling unwell?" the conductor asked, walking by. Henry stammered. I need some water." But even as he spoke, he saw the conductor's badge flicker. First it said James, then Robert, then Ahmed. Henry shut his eyes tightly. When he opened them again, the badge simply read James. Henry stumbled toward the back of the carriage, but as he passed each row, he noticed something terrifying. Some passengers seemed to recognize him. "Henry?" said one woman, surprised. She looked exactly like his old neighbor from years ago, though she hadn't been on the train before. "Henry, is that you? It's been so long." But before Henry could reply, she vanished, and a completely different man was sitting in her place, whistling quietly. Henry's heart sank. What was happening to him? Finally, he confronted the stranger. The man in the hat sat quietly in the very last row, his eyes calm, his hands resting on a leather briefcase. "You knew this would happen," Henry said, his voice trembling. The man nodded once. "Yes." "Why me?" Henry demanded. "Why show me this?" The stranger tilted his head. "Because you asked for it." "I never asked for." "Yes, you did," the man interrupted gently. "Every regret, every choice you wish you had made differently, every moment you long to change. Those wishes reached further than you realized. The seat listens. It shows you the lives you could have lived." Henry froze. His throat went dry. The man leaned forward slightly. "But the seat also tests you. Too many changes, and you may lose track of who you truly are." Henry felt dizzy. His head spun with memories. Moments he regretted, decisions he wished he could rewrite. The friend he had betrayed in school. The job opportunity he had turned down. The love he had let slip away. Could this seat really give him another chance? He looked at the stranger desperately. "Can I change things? Can I fix my life?" The man's lips curled into the faintest smile. "That is not for me to say. You already know the answer. But be warned. Every time you sit, you move further from the life you began with. And one day, you may not find your way back." The train screeched as it slowed into another station. The carriage rocked gently, and outside, the platform lights glowed. Passengers stood up, gathering their bags. Henry turned to look at the window. For a brief second, he saw something shocking. His reflection was not sitting in his seat anymore. Instead, it was standing on the platform outside, staring at him with pity. He jerked back, heart hammering. "Careful," the stranger said softly. "The seat is already pulling you." Henry's hands shook. He looked at the seat, then back at the man. "What do I do?" The stranger stood, adjusting his hat. "That depends. Do you want the truth, Henry? Or do you want peace?" Before Henry could answer, the man stepped off the train and disappeared into the crowd outside. The whistle blew. The doors closed. The train began to move again. Henry sank back into the seat, staring at his own trembling hands. The note in his pocket seemed to burn against his chest. He pulled it out, only to find new words written beneath the old ones. "One more stop. Then you must decide." The mystery only grew deeper, and every answer led to more questions. What seemed solved was far from over, and the final twist waits in part 3.